If you're trying to build a side hustle or just make money online right now, and if your marketing looks like this, where you post content, get a few likes but zero buyers, you're trying constantly to please the algorithm, you've either spent money on ads or considered it, but it all feels like gambling, or you're tweaking your funnel but nothing seems to be working, then you're not bad at business. You're just playing marketing on hard mode because the game has changed. We're entering 2026 in a full-blown trust recession. Like, people don't buy because your reel or shorts got 1 million views. They buy because they trust you enough to risk their money. And so the goal isn't virality or getting likes. The goal is building a trust system that turns a stranger into a buyer without you chasing them, begging them, or living on sales calls. I know this because I made over 280K via my media and consulting business using this exact content system across YouTube, Instagram, and podcasting. And some of the best leads I've ever gotten came from videos with under 100 views. That's right, 100 views. Meanwhile, I had a LinkedIn post hit close to 500,000 views and it brought me zero leads. Yeah, zero leads. So if you're still chasing views and virality, you might end up building an audience and get some likes in the process, but you're not building a business and you're not building a solid income stream. And so in this video, I'm going to show you the exact system that can take a side hustle to over 100K a year with no team by designing a content ecosystem to build solid trust with your audience. And I'll break it down so clearly that by the end, you'll know what platforms matter, what content to create, why trust beats virality in 2026, why long form content is now non-negotiable, and why funnels quietly lose you money even when they work, and most importantly, how to turn attention into buyers without feeling salesy. If you're serious about building a side hustle or an online business that actually compounds, then this might be the most important marketing video you watch this year. This is episode 4 of I2R, Idea to Revenue. This series is meant for ambitious people to help them become an entrepreneur alongside their day job and build a solid, reliable income without burning out or blowing up their life. If you haven't watched episodes 1 to 3 yet, start there because they cover the big picture, my story, how to create a strong 100K offer, and how to validate it fast and get paid in the process. And in this video, I'm going to show you Nuevo, which is the third pillar of I2R. And honestly, this might be the most important video in the entire series, because even if you have the perfect validated offer, if your marketing is broken, your business stays broke because you're not getting any clients or buyers. And so instead, what we want to do is scale confidently to hit our 120K goal. Before we get into it though, if you want the inner workings of what I'm sharing here, I have a free 15-day email series. It's basically 15 steps in 15 days to becoming an entrepreneur, even if you have a job. It's super practical, no fluff, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. You'll get 1 email a day and you can unsubscribe anytime you want. Link is in the description. So I should start off by saying that most of my high intent inbound leads for Unimedia, my media and consulting business, came because I had a solid content ecosystem. And it was basically a combination of, Instagram, YouTube, and my podcasting, episodes. And because of this, people would book calls with me, basically clients, and they'd feel like, we have already met. And this is because they already knew what I worked on, how I think through my problems, what I believe in, what I'm actually good at, where I'm actually strong, and whether I'm their kind of person. And this is because I used to constantly publish content on all these different platforms within my content ecosystem, that they had a fair idea of all these things even before they got on a call with me. And I used the same system to start talking about I2R as well, and I got a bunch of people who reached out who wanted to chat with me about their side hustles and businesses. And I ended up getting on call with 42 of them. This is basically those 42 aspiring entrepreneurs I mentioned earlier in the series. And again, all of this came from non-viral content. And so you can see a lot of these messages were an outcome of my content ecosystem and me having published content specifically catering to the pain points and challenges that they faced. And yeah, so these are some of the screenshots from some of those calls. Out of those 42 conversations, a handful of people were like so aligned with the problem and the way I framed the solution that they asked to work with me. And that's how I actually had the beta cohort happen. And I made $2,400 in 6 weeks. Here's a screenshot. It's crazy that you can just get started right away and you start creating content strategically to attract the right kind of people and forget about going viral. You can actually make some serious money. And right now, my next cohort is due to start sometime end of Feb, beginning of March, and we're on track to doing $8,000. Actually, it's a little more. It's going to be around $10,000. So again, all without virality, all from trust. And I just want to add that This worked for my clients, but it didn't just work for my clients. It's the same system that helped me with I2R. It's the same system that helped me get investors. Yeah, I got a couple of potential investors for my coffee business, Money Coffee. And again, the same thing for partnerships as well. It was all from that same system, but basically got me different outcomes. It just goes to show that if you put yourself out there with the right strategy, well, you can attract the right kind of people. Okay, so here's what most people get wrong about marketing, right? They think that they need a massive audience, they need to post everywhere, they need to go viral, run ads, be consistent in chaos. But actually that just makes you look productive and it's rarely profitable. And so what you actually need is basically a small group of the right people who trust you enough to buy and stay long enough to understand your credibility and approach, because views don't pay you money. Trust is what pays you money. And right now we're living in a serious trust recession. And I say this because people are more skeptical than ever, especially with AI running rampant and with mistrust on steroids, because people have been burnt by, creators, gurus, courses, and even AI generated nonsense. And so if you want someone to pay you, $500, $1,000, $3,000 or $5,000 or anything basically in the high ticket segment, they don't need more information or content. What they need is conviction in you and what you can deliver for them. And so again, this is basically the trust index in the last 2 decades. And you can see that it's on a decline here. And this applies both to B2B as well as to consumers as well. So again, I just want to reiterate that you don't need more reach. You just need more belief in the right people. So building trust with the right people long enough, and then money becomes like a byproduct and not the end goal. So let me prove this with some numbers and some examples, right? And why chasing impressions alone is like a waste of your time. So I've had YouTube videos with under 100 views generate leads because the right 100 people watched it. And at the same time, I've had a LinkedIn post with almost 500,000 views that have generated me 0 leads. So this screenshot you see right here has got about 500,000 impressions, about 3,600 engagement or likes, if you will, and about 293 comments, but it gave me 0 leads. And that's because virality is often just entertainment and just something that the algorithm serves to more people. But like I keep saying, you need to be optimizing not for impressions or views, you need to be optimizing for buyers and intent. And that's the only thing that's going to keep your business afloat, or if you want to keep making money. And the best bit right now is that the algorithms have changed where they're promoting new channels or handles more than ever, and they're rewarding newer creators more than ever. And so you'll see these screenshots, and I'm sure you've seen this too on your feed, where out of all the thumbnails on YouTube, I've seen ones where, here, like you see here, it's only 36 views, but it's being promoted. There's one from Shan Hanif, who's an agency owner in London, again, less than 2,000 views. There's another one from Maria, around 2.7K views. You'll see a bunch of them, even on your Instagram feed as well. It's the same thing where we see new videos and content being promoted with lower view count everywhere. And so the point I'm really trying to make is that this is the right time to capitalize on that. You don't optimize for attention, you optimize for intent. And so a small audience with trust will always outperform a viral audience with none. Alright, so let's talk more about trust and how to quantify it, right? And again, don't just take my word for it. Let's actually look at what Google says. So there's a popular marketing heuristic often referred to as Google's 7-11-4 rule. And it basically means that people typically need around 7 hours with your content across 11 touch points and 4 platforms before they trust you enough to buy from you. Just think about that, right? It's something that one reel can't do. It's something that one viral post can't really do. And it's something that even one ad can't force you to do. It's because no single piece of content can build that level of trust, especially for higher ticket items. And so what we need to do instead is basically building a system or a bunch of content strategically created to nurture your audience where a single piece can't. And this is basically what an ecosystem is. It's a strategic mix of content across the right platforms designed to nurture trust efficiently. And so the old thinking was, how do I go viral? Or I would even say people still try to go viral and it works for certain spaces. But the new thinking, especially if you're planning to make money out of this, is how do I stay with them long enough to build trust or earn trust? And so how can I constantly find my ideal audience member and give them value or serve them the right kind of content so that they're one step closer to working with me? And so trust is built through accumulation and not spikes. Okay, so let's talk funnels and why the conventional funnels are not efficient and pretty unreliable in today's day and age. Like, they used to work insanely well because ads were so much cheaper, and a lot of the big names in the industry like Alex Hormozy, like you see here, Ali Abdal, Sunny Lenarduzzi, Iman Gadzi, they built empires on that era with paid traffic, funnels, and landing pages, and then closing. But here's the problem with that today. One, ads have become so much more expensive, and so it's so much harder to acquire the right leads. And then two, once you pay to acquire those leads, then you kind of lose most of them because that's how a funnel is structured. So let's actually talk about why funnels are leaky right now. So this is the classic, funnel flow, right? From stranger, you go to a lead, you find a lead, and from a lead, you basically book a call, and then from there, you get them to buy. And because you can spend very little money back in the day, because ads were cheap, to, find your ideal lead and then funnel them onto your landing page where there's, something like a video or some kind of post, and then through sheer math, you hope that about 10 to 15% of them convert and book a call with you, which basically means that the remainder 85 to 90% is lost. And although you spend quite a bit of money to acquire them, they're completely gone. You can't use them again. And so if you run through this entire funnel, you'll realize how inefficient a funnel actually is. And another thing is that with funnels, you're basically trying to get them on a call and get them to buy when you want them to buy. But how people end up buying something is they buy when they think they're ready. And so the problem with funnels is that it assumes urgency because we're trying to get them to buy ASAP or right on that call. But in reality, buying is delayed. And I'm sure you've experienced this too in the past where you've wanted to buy a product or service and you decide to spend some time researching, you go down multiple rabbit holes and then finally decide, okay, yeah, this is a good purchase or not. And so the last thing you want to do is pressure someone to buying something on a call. I've been on numerous sales calls and it's not really gone well for me in the sense there's so much pressure trying to get someone to buy something from you on that call and kind of, get them to pull the trigger. But in reality, it's so much better where you're kind of pulling someone where the marketing does the heavy lifting for you and then they decide, hey, the time is now, I'm going to raise my hand and actually, purchase whatever we're trying to sell. And so instead, what we really need to do is have a system that'll ensure that all 100% of people we get as leads, either from ads or organically, need to be served more of our valuable content so that we get them to understand the benefits of what we're basically selling and how we can help them in the process. And so if you don't have an ecosystem, like I mentioned in the previous example, you're basically losing about 80 to 90% of your leads. And that's not an efficient way to work or approach your marketing. And so in this example, you'll see instead of going through the conventional way of stranger to lead and then getting them on a call and then getting them to buy, what we're basically doing is we have our ideal audience member right in the center and we're serving them with different types of content pieces. It could be something on our social, it could be basically videos on YouTube or even videos on any of these platforms where you're at, and or podcasts in my case in the past, or even newsletters. And again, we'll talk more about how you need to structure your ecosystem in a bit. Also, another massive flaw with funnels and why ecosystem works is because there are simpler, smaller steps of ascension compared to what funnels do. And by that I mean, here we're getting someone who's a complete stranger to become a lead by basically, running ads and then trying to get them on a call, which in itself isn't easy to do, and then getting them to buy, which is super freaking hard. But instead, if you look at how, ecosystems work, you're basically starting them off as a stranger and then we're just basically giving them something for free. We're giving them value or we're giving them enough reason to follow us and they become one of our audience members who might engage, who might watch our content, and from there they actually become a follower, subscriber. And so up until here, it's so much easier to convert someone to becoming a follower, subscriber because they really have nothing to lose. And so the more we can serve them here and the more we can nurture them through a sustainable ecosystem, the easier it's going to be for us to then move them to a lead. And then from a lead, they become a prospect depending on, again, how much we serve them content or what kind of content we serve them. And then from prospect, they could potentially become a low ticket buyer, which could be one of your smaller products. And then eventually getting them on a call or them voluntarily saying, hey, I want to be part of, whatever is the offer that you're selling. And then eventually they become a successful client. And so you'll see that the kind of steps that we follow here in this ladder, so much easier and smaller as opposed to the kind of leaps of faith that we'll need, our ideal audience member or the ideal customer to take. And so the point is that with smaller steps, that requires higher trust, and that means higher conversion. But with an ecosystem, you're not throwing away 80 to 90% of your leads. And so funnels basically are trying to optimize for speed and urgency, like I mentioned earlier. But what ecosystems do is basically optimize for trust and timing. And so we wait until they decide they want to buy and not the other way around. And that's actually a good segue into how conversion isn't just a moment, it's basically a timeline. And so studies and stats show that over 60% of your audience will never buy from you, which is fair, right? Like, that's normal. You can't expect 100% of your audience members to buy something or the other from you. And so marketing isn't about converting anyone, it's about being present for the right ones. And like I mentioned earlier, timing is everything. Timing is crucial here. And so out of the remaining 40%, around 20% will be ready or almost ready to buy what you're offering. And about 80% out of that will be just hoverers, someone who just is consuming and just still need time to figure out whether they want to buy and purchase from you or not. And the thing with that is, those 15 to 20% might buy soon. That 80 to 85%, they're not ready, but they might decide to buy anywhere between 1 day to maybe even 1 year or 2 years. And so the point is, you need to be visible until they are ready, and you stay top of mind. You kind of build reciprocity by providing them with value. And through that process of providing value, you're basically nurturing them, and then eventually you become the obvious choice for them. And so why the ecosystem model works better is because the ecosystem nurtures instead of chasing. You stay visible without being pushy. Like, no one likes someone who's trying to hard sell them all the time. Trust obviously compounds over time. Value is given before anything is asked. So like I said, it's so much easier for someone to consume your content or for them to become your follower, subscriber, and then you're kind of building a reciprocity bank as you're constantly providing value through your content. And eventually your audience members like, hey, this person is credible. They provided so much value to me without even me asking. It's helped me in numerous ways. And so you're kind of building that reciprocity bank. And so when the timing is right, they reach out themselves. And I've noticed that numerous times with my media and consulting business in the past, where they, like I said earlier, they would just reach out, book a call with me, get on the call, and they already knew what I'm doing, my values, and the way I function. And so it was so much easier to convert them. And again, the beauty of that model was that I was working with massive ticket sizes, so it meant a massive payout as well. Again, I want to reiterate that people don't buy when you want them to, people buy when they're ready. And so funnels try to force timing, ecosystem respects timing. And this is a crucial difference between the two models, right? With a funnel, you're basically following a sales-based approach or conversion where you're getting them to buy now. It's basically sort of a push. And so you're pushing people to book calls with you and you're hoping that they convert immediately. But in reality, what you want is a pull approach where you're attracting the right people. Where in reality, marketing is basically a pull approach. It's basically them thinking, I'm ready. And so people decide on their own timeline without pressure. And when their timing is right, they raise their hand as opposed to you getting them on a call and trying to kind of brute force them or convert them. All right, so let's get specific on how to build the so-called ecosystem. So in our case, Nuevo is basically a diamond system, and you can think of it as an attention ladder. So let's actually look at this, where we're talking about 4 different segments. There's the low attention and low intent, which is basically any short form platform, basically something like Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts. You're basically figuring out how people can discover you, and so you earn curiosity with nuggets. You're providing small tidbits of information. Then you kind of push them to your mid attention or mid intent platforms. This could be something like YouTube, or it could be any of the podcasting platforms where they spend more time with you and there's more depth. And so there's stories, there's proof, breakdowns, method, something like what I'm doing here right now. And from there, you're pushing them to a high attention or high intent platform. This could be something like an email list or a newsletter. And this is where you're building a stronger relationship, and it's your own platform because you're no longer at the mercy of the algorithm. And so something I should call out is that all these platforms I mentioned here, basically you have no control over whether the content is going to be served to a certain person or not. And it's not the platform that you own. Like tomorrow, if TikTok decides to not exist, then you're kind of losing all your following and all of the nurturing and the value and the list of customers that or audience members you've built in the past. But with newsletters, there's no way they can take away the list of email IDs from you. And so This is like an owned platform, and so you're no longer at the mercy of the algorithm. And from here, you're pushing them to a super high attention platform. This could be a paid offer, a cohort, a program, or a service. This is basically where they pay for something and you provide the transformation that your offer already suggests. And in the center of all this is basically one word. It's trust. And how this plays out is from nuggets or short form content, you send them to long form content like videos and deep dives on YouTube or podcasts, push them to newsletters, and from there you provide them with specific transformation. And the reason why this works is because this matches the buyer's timeline, it respects attention levels, because some people prefer certain platforms over others. They nurture like 80% of those hoverers I mentioned earlier. It converts without pressure. Like Nuevo doesn't force decisions, it actually earns them. And the diamond method works because it respects how people actually decide. And the moment you give your customers control and you make it seem like they are the ones choosing, chances of it converting are just super high. Okay, so we spoke about the ecosystem, but I want to stress on one part of the ecosystem that's non-negotiable, which is long form content. Like short form is discovery, but long form is trust. And to show you how impactful long form content is, allow one of the biggest names in marketing, Seth Godin, to explain it better.
It's very unlikely that a TikTok video is going to make someone uncomfortable because it's going to be over in 30 seconds. So they'll just go on to the next thing. But learning always involves discomfort. Learning means acknowledging you are incompetent on the way to discovering you're competent. First, you have to say, oh, I didn't know that, and now I do, right? So a 10-minute YouTube isn't 20 times better than a TikTok. It's 200 times better. Because what you did was you created tension. And in that tension, in that discomfort, someone grew. You didn't have the chance to do that in TikTok. You're just entertaining in a carnival.
And again, YouTube is the best platform for this because it's where people go with intent. They're not just doom scrolling, they're searching, they're learning, they're binging. And even in broad platform usage, you can actually see how YouTube dominates consumption here. And so it's one of the most widely used platforms at the moment. And personally, I should say I consume YouTube far more than Netflix at this point, actually far more than any of the other platforms at this point, where lunch alone used to be a show on Netflix, but now it's YouTube because YouTube Premium for the win. And because long form fits into my real life and it's not just like scrolling through like endless nuggets, but instead I am trying to learn a lot and YouTube becomes the perfect platform to learn anything. And because long form does the heavy lifting, it actually replaces you. So what changed everything for me is when I stopped treating content as posts and started treating it as, sales assets, nurturing assets, or trust assets. Like for instance, what I'm doing right here, I'm giving you all the nitty-gritty of what Nuevo is and what I2R is without really expecting anything in return. And on the flip side, you're actually understanding how I work, the kind of value I bring, my credibility, and then over the course of this, maybe you want to work with me. And so that's exactly what this entire thing is about. And so yeah, this is how I mentioned earlier that, my leads, clients, and investors would basically join my call and already know my background, method, and details. It's because I'm giving away all of that on either YouTube or Instagram, but mostly on YouTube. All right, so we now know what platforms to focus on, but what kind of posts do you actually post? You basically create content that moves people through different levels of awareness. First, we have basically the unaware level, which basically means that they don't know the problem, they don't know you, they don't know solutions. And so right now, they're basically complete strangers to you. Then we have the problem aware. They're basically aware that they have a need or they have a desire to be fulfilled or a problem to be solved and they're looking for a solution. But again, the point I want to make clear here is they are not clear about the solution yet. Then we have someone who's solution aware, which basically means that they've looked at different solutions to their problems, but haven't decided what's the best solution for them. And then they have the you aware level where they're not only aware of solutions, but they're aware of you or your business as a legitimate provider of at least one of those good solutions. And so they understand your POV and they basically start trusting you in that process. And then we finally have the deal ready level where they're the most aware prospects who are ready to buy, just looking for the right opportunity to move forward. And so you can clearly see that we're basically taking them through different levels of awareness and nurturing them in the process. Okay, so let me tell you a mistake that most people make at this point where they decide to just start creating content, right? What they end up doing is they create generic how-to content that is currently being commoditized by AI. It's basically those step-by-step activities that is already available online. Now, why the hell would they come to you? Because at the moment, AI can basically give you all those answers literally at your fingertips. And so what you need to focus on are your unfair advantages. And what's your unfair advantages? It could be your beliefs, your proof, your story, your method, your taste, your lived experience. And that is something that AI can't copy. And so the biggest thing you can do with your content is basically try and shift beliefs. You need to show them how you think, explain why you do things differently, and then back it up with proof, work, and experience. That's exactly what I'm trying to do here with my I2R mini series as well, is showing you how I2R has worked for me in the past, how it's worked for my clients in the past, and then showing you why this works so that it actually shifts your beliefs about me, my method, and the outcome. And so you do this by exposing them to your style of thinking or belief, and you back it up, like I mentioned, with valid reasons, proof, work, etc. And then once you know what kind of content you're going to publish, it's just a matter of positioning them for different levels of awareness. And so with my ecosystem, there's basically growth content, there's evergreen value content, and then there's sales content. And you'll see here that I've aligned them with which part of the funnel, because a lot of people in the marketing space and a lot of people just in this space in general are aware of what tofu is, what mofu is, and what bofu is. It basically means top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel. And so my growth content will attract the right strangers. It's a way for them to discover me and build curiosity, and then they might actually consume some of my evergreen or value content, which will build more trust and establish my authority. And then finally, something like a sales asset, which is like exactly like this video, where I talk about the method, the proof, the case studies, breakdowns, testimonials, behind the scenes, all of it. And so it's almost like going back to those levels of awareness, or going back to even those attention ladder pieces I mentioned earlier. It's how do you take them from one step to the other without forcing it down their throat. And so the outcome is you don't chase buyers, you're slowly educating them, you're aligning their beliefs with yours, and then they eventually decide to self-select as opposed to you basically shoving it down their throat. Okay, so here's something that most people miss when it comes to, creating content. Like I mentioned earlier, trust isn't just about being informative. It's basically built when people start feeling like they know you. Think about it, right? Like most people that finally trust you is because they've spent enough time with you, they've seen what you do, they know that you're not just another scammer. And so information might earn you some attention, but familiarity actually earns trust. And what you really want is home level trust. Not just influencer worship or some parasocial obsession like a lot of these creators talk about online, but instead what you don't want is for them to feel like you're just another creator. And just think about people you trust online right now. It's not just about what they teach and the value that they provide you, but there's a good chance you also know about their everyday life, how they think, what they stand for, and what they don't tolerate. And so you even know the boring behind the scenes everyday stuff about them because they might share it in a vlog or an Instagram story or something. And let me tell you, that's not accidental, that's just intentional trust building, or trust design, if you will. And an example that really struck a chord with me was something that Tom Youngs, another creator in this info consulting space, shared a while ago, which is, like fictional characters in the show Friends, in the series Friends. Like none of these people exist, but we all know where they live, what they do on a daily, what their quirks are, what they like, what they dislike. And it's because we kind of get to see the behind the scenes, and in that process really build a bond with them, and we kind of trust them to a certain degree, if you will, right? And it's the same thing here. How can your content slowly nurture, slowly get them to understand the quirks, your challenges, the kind of stuff that you don't like, or what you don't tolerate, your values and all of that, so that by the time they get on a call with you, or by the time they reach out to you, or by the time they even want to engage with you, they already know all of that. Okay, so without overthinking it, your content should basically naturally reveal 5 things over time. What you're genuinely good at, not everything, just a few things you're actually above average at, what you care about, which is basically your interests, your obsessions, what you enjoy working on, and then what you believe in, it's the opinions you're willing to stand by, where you draw a line and what you don't agree with, and then how you live and work, your routines, your habits, behind the scenes, your vlog or whatever. This is why a day in the life content works, and it's basically what humanizes you. And then finally, your imperfections. It's not just trauma dumping, or you're just getting on a camera and just start crying or bawling your eyes out. It's basically enough honesty to signal, I'm not a polished brand mascot. And so what you need to do is think about how you can smartly sprinkle these signals into your short form content, long form videos, newsletters, stories. Again, you're not doing this with some ill intent or malintent. You're not trying to lie about this. You're not trying to build some sort of a fake persona. You just have to talk to the camera or just create content in a way that you can talk about naturally and authentically who you are and what you do. And when these show up consistently, people stop seeing you as just another content creator. They start seeing you as someone that they trust, and then over time that trust compounds. All right, I want to talk about a small bonus part here because we spoke about platforms, but one of the best features Meta did was basically copy the feature from Snapchat. And let me tell you why Instagram and even WhatsApp stories are one of the most powerful trust tools available. It's because stories basically reveal how you think in real time. It understands your world without polish. It also follows your decision and not just your outcomes. And they're really low effort and high intimacy, and there's no pressure because you just kind of pull out your phone and just start creating content, and it's not even permanent because it goes away after 24 hours. And so Instagram stories and WhatsApp statuses are huge advantages because if someone watches your stories regularly, you don't need to convince them or sell them hard. It's like they're already getting a peek behind the curtains to who you are and what you do on a daily. And so I've been publishing so many stories in the last, quite a few months since I came back again. And so like you can see here, this is an example of an Instagram story, or I think, again. So you can see here, I've been publishing a lot of Instagram stories. If you want to follow along, you can actually follow me on Instagram. The link is in the description. But yeah, I get a ton of engagement from Instagram stories, but more importantly, people get to see who I am and me speaking really without any sort of filter or without a script, if you will. And even in this case, I don't have a script, but I'm just kind of following along and explaining my thought. Because if someone watches your stories regularly, you don't need to convince them or sell them hard. It's like they're already getting a peek behind the curtains to who you are and what you do on a daily. And so I've been publishing so many stories. So you can see here, I've been publishing a lot of Instagram stories. If you want to follow along, you can actually follow me on Instagram. The link is in the description. But yeah, I get a ton of engagement from Instagram stories, but more importantly, people get to see who I am and me speaking really without any sort of filter or without a script, if you will. And even in this case, I don't have a script, but I'm just kind of following along and explaining my thought. But this is a little bit more polished compared to, me just pulling out my phone and, just talking to the camera. And so posts build perception, stories build relationships, and people buy from the relationships and not just, content calendars or content creators. All right, so this is the second bonus piece where you can actually use ads to amplify your content. But again, I wouldn't recommend this for beginners. And so if you're getting started with content creation, or if you're getting started with creating your offer and selling it online, then don't use this. Come back to this way later. But it'll give you an idea of how you can pour fuel on your content fire and increase your impact and reach drastically. And the way you do that is you use ads, but not like how most people or brands use it. And this is actually a technique that my media team has been doing with a lot of clients lately. And it shoots up the ROAS, the return of ad spend, to about 8 to 12x, sometimes 15x, and even 20, 30x. And so the smartest way to run ads is not to just do it on cold, untested content or push sales messages too early or just treat ads like shortcuts, which is what most people used to do. And like I said earlier, ads were super cheap in the past. So you could just basically throw dollars and basically amplify a particular piece of content and then funnel them to your landing page. But since now ads are expensive, and because we are approaching things the Nuevo way or the ecosystem way, what you need to do is basically take content that has already performed organically and then add ad spend after proof. And then you let the algorithm amplify what people already like. And so this strategy wins or works because you already know it is done well with your audience, and so it has a higher likelihood of succeeding. Second is that it doesn't look like an ad or feel like an ad, and so it fits well within the Instagram and LinkedIn flow algorithm, and so people kind of engage with it even more without thinking that this is an ad. Again, don't take my word for it. So here's Sabri Subi, who's a shark on Shark Tank, and he's also a marketing leader. I think he runs King Kong Marketing or Kong Marketing, I forget. So here's a small snippet where he explains the rationale behind the same strategy I mentioned earlier.
One of the things that has become more apparent with Instagram Reels and TikTok is that you want to use organic to feed the paid engine. So it's a great way now that you can get distribution on these platforms without having huge follower bases for you to test hooks and for you to test messaging that works in your marketplace, and then finding out what works organically and then turning that into an ad and then amplifying it. The customer journey is not like a funnel anymore. It's changed. The people that are gonna maybe discover you from an ad, they're gonna do a Google sniff test, go to your YouTube, watch 2 videos, then get retargeted on Facebook, download a high value content offer or some type of opt-in or register for a webinar, watch that, go on your email list, get 5 emails, book in a call and buy. One feeds the other. You wanna have a combination of both. If you start with organic and there's no one looking at your stuff, and that frustrates you and you stay there, that's ultimately gonna kill your business.
And so yeah, the outcome is basically higher engagement, better quality leads, and the ROAS jumps from single digits to double digits. And so personally, I've seen this work wonders for my clients, where it's gone from 2x ROAS to about 8 to 12x, almost 30x in some cases. And now with some of my content pieces that I've done really well, like for instance, this particular video kind of blew up. It's got about close to 400 likes or something. And so since this is an outlier, I'll be running a few ads on this. This is also another outlier, and so I'll be running a few ads on this. So you'll probably see this on your Instagram feed, but if you're already following me, then probably not. But yeah, this is the right strategy or the right way to ensure that your content finds more of your ideal customer or audience members. All right, so let's talk about something important called the 5 stack or the 5 yeses frame. So at the end of the day, someone buys from you when you get 5 yeses from them. So there's basically yes to the outcome, they need to believe in your outcome. Then there's yes to your method, where they need to believe in your method. Then there's yes to you, where they trust you as a person, not just a creator. And then there's yes to themselves. Sorry, there's an M missing here, where they believe they can do it, not just someone else. And finally, there needs to be a yes to now. They need to believe that this is the right time to act. And so when all the 5 yeses are present, conversion feels natural. And so the best way to do that is to talk about all 5 yeses. You talk clearly about the outcome you help people achieve. You want to explain your method with proof, not hype, exactly like what I've done here. You show up authentically so people get to know you. You share stories that show people like them are succeeding, and then you invite action, because clarity beats delay any day. And so Nuevo is how you become the obvious choice for your ideal customer or ideal audience member. Now, all of this is great, but I'll tell you the biggest reason why most people don't see results. It's because most people quit too early. Like, you'll start seeing results maybe close to about the 180-day mark, but most people quit somewhere between here and here. And so here's an example of Maria Wendt, another creator in this space who's killing it. I think she's like making like $1 million or something every single month from the strategy I mentioned earlier. So anyway, she's a successful creator in this space. So let me show you a snippet of the same 180-day strategy that I mentioned earlier.
For 180 days straight, so 180 days straight, I would be making a reel, but here's the catch. It would be insanely educational content solving hyper-specific problems. Think how to bleach tiles, the grout in your tiles, versus how to clean your house. Hyper-specific. Step 3, after 180 days of making insanely educational content, solving hyper-specific problems, I would launch a digital product that, again, solved a hyper-specific problem. If you're making general digital products, they're not gonna sell. Step 4, once I launched this digital product, I would keep making insanely educational content, solving hyper-specific problems that sort of teed up and supported the digital product I was selling. I would pitch every day, but in subtle ways that people wouldn't even really notice I was pitching. Step 5, I would rinse and repeat until I hit the income level that I wanted.
So the big takeaway here is that most people quit before trust compounds. Consistency beats intensity any single day. You'd rather stay consistent and produce one piece of content every day, or one piece of content or a few pieces of content every week, as opposed to just having spurts of content pieces go up. All of the content that you're going to put out there needs to have one message, one offer, and you do it long enough, at least for the minimum 180 days. So again, this entire Nuevo strategy is for you if you want predictable growth and you're building real trust and you want to hit that 10K month to feel normal and not just lucky. And this is not for you if you want a quick win like I mentioned at the beginning of the video and you want to change direction every month and you get bored before results even start showing up. So the rule is you pick your message, pick your offer, and you stay long enough for trust to compound. November only works if you give it time and you don't quit too early. Alright, before we wrap, here's what you can do next. I know I've given you a lot to think about in this video and a lot to act on, but what actually moves the needle is the nitty-gritty. The specific types of content pieces, the hooks, the pacing, the style, the approach, the weekly decisions, the sequencing, the tweaks that save you months of trial and error. Trust me, I know because I've spent so much time on this. And that's the part I help you with inside I2R, my cohort. It's not just the strategy, it's also the execution, the feedback, and the accountability piece. And I'm certain that if you're still watching right now, then you've probably thought about building something of your own and scaling it the right way. And I know for the fact that you don't need more motivation, you just need a solid structure, a solid plan and approach, and someone to keep you moving. At least that's what I wanted when I got started. And that's what my I2R cohorts are designed for. Earlier I mentioned that if you run the system consistently on your own, you should commit to at least 6 months of posting and marketing before expecting serious traction. That absolutely works. But if you want to avoid the common mistakes and skip the guesswork and have someone who can personally help you move faster towards your first $10,000 month and compress that timeline to the next 3-6 months, then the next I2R cohort is likely a strong fit for you. Also, quite a few reached out asking me if this is just another course. It's not. It's a program where I personally will have sessions with you and other like-minded entrepreneurs, get on calls with you to guide and support you and help you hit your financial goals. Now, I've been burned by numerous courses in the past, and I'm betting on the fact that going into the next decade, the game changer is going to be communities and groups like this where we actually interact and help each other grow, and eventually extend that to in-person meetings as well. But I also want to add that if you're looking for shortcuts, hype, or someone to do the thinking for you or actually do the work for you, then this is not for you. I'm building a tight, high-intent group of people who are serious about building real income and actually scaling their business. Just know that there's a serious vetting process, and so if that sounds like you can fill out the form below or DM me on Instagram with either I2R or Work with AD, and I'll walk you through how the cohort works and whether it's a good fit for both of us. I also want to add that if you can't afford this right now, that's completely okay. I'd much rather you save, build some momentum on your own, and work with me when the timing feels right. Do not put yourself in a financially stressful position for the program. That goes completely against what I teach here. This is about building leverage, not pressure. But if you also believe that investing in yourself is the best investment you can make to get you to make you more money in the process and live a life of abundance, then reach out because I think you're the good fit. Also, if you're the creator, founder, or brand watching this and thinking, I love this approach and strategy, and would rather pay someone or the team to do all the thinking, all the work, and all the heavy lifting, everything I mentioned here, then that's exactly what we do at Unimedia, my media and consulting company. We are the strategy first, done for you content and marketing partner, from positioning and messaging to long form content, short form distribution, publishing, and the full ecosystem I mentioned earlier. My team and I handle it end to end, so you don't have to worry about anything. And if that's what you're looking for, then you can book a call with us via the link in the description. Hit the like button, drop me a comment, and subscribe, all the good stuff, because episode 5 is on its way to you. And send this to someone who keeps planning a business but never starts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.